And I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year as we get into the holidays here. Our next call will be January 20th. I want to make a few announcements. We released the winners last week of the Israel contest, and Valiant Anku won $100. Joshua Lett, Mobile, Billy Alves, Ohio, Zach Webb, Kentucky, Dustin Alves, Ohio, and Zach Martin, Kentucky. So wish congratulations, and we want to raise up leaders for Israel, and that's the purpose of the cause. We're thankful for all of you. You've taken your precious time tonight to help educate these young men to be leaders for Israel. And we're going to have, Kathleen's going to introduce our speaker in a second. He's in Israel. For all the young men out there, he'll tell us what time it is in Israel, but he made a sacrifice to be on with us tonight. So we're thankful for him. And I want to introduce Aryeh Spiro. He's a good friend that loves Israel. He's going to be speaking in February for the opening prayer.
We're now in the period this month where Christianity was born, Christmas, and where Judaism was reborn with Hanukkah. And both Judaism and Christianity came to overturn the tenets of paganism. And paganism, in the name of moral relativism, allows everything. It tolerates everything. Everything except, of course, the Word of God. In America, we see the moral relativism trying to transform America from a Judeo-Christian country into one that is completely secular. And it's also these same forces, the forces of paganism and moral relativism, the forces that we call the left, that are usually those arrayed against Israel, because Israel, like America, stands for something distinct, a Judeo-Christian heritage. Our prayer tonight, as we light the first candle of Hanukkah, and as we are but a week away from Christmas, is that the force of spiritual light of our Judeo-Christian heritage will overcome the darkness of paganism. Paganism seems to glitter and sparkle, but ultimately it brings darkness. We are all together here in this fight, and may God bless us in our valiant efforts in behalf of America and Israel. Amen.
Thank you, Aryeh. I want to introduce Kathleen Cox, and she will introduce our speaker, and we're going to take 20 minutes on the speak and then questions after that. So we're just so thankful we have Danny on tonight, but I'm going to let Kathleen introduce him.
Well, thank you, Mike, and my hat is truly off to each of you for taking time from your busy holiday schedules tonight to join in this conference call, and it's for no other reason because of your desire to know more about the state of Israel and the people of Israel. And thank you, Mr. Danny Seaman, for getting up at 3:30 in the morning Israel time to be with us. When Mike asked me to introduce Mr. Seaman to this group, I immediately felt that it was my honor and privilege to do so. As a young man, Danny served in the IDF in an elite paratroopers unit where he served with distinction. And upon his completion of his military service, Mr. Seaman did not stop serving his country, but instead of donning a uniform and carrying a weapon, Mr. Seaman began using his God-given talents, his education and his brain and his voice to serve the people of Israel by uplifting and defending the state and her people. And Mr. Danny Seaman went on to become the spokesperson for the governments of 6 Israeli prime ministers. And after a career in government that spanned 31 years, Danny is now the bureau chief for the Voice of Israel, which is an English language news and talk radio program produced in Jerusalem.
Blake Smith.
Now, Seaman is not just someone that my husband and I have come to know just on a surface level, but Danny Seaman is someone we have come to know and deeply respect because of his knowledge and his very deep love for Israel. And you've all received a copy of Mr. Seaman's very impressive resume, so I don't want to take up valuable time repeating what you already know. But I do want you to know that Mr. Daniel Seaman is one of the most intelligent, dedicated, and patriotic Israelis we have ever met. And before this call tonight, I spoke with Danny and asked if there was anything that he would like for me to especially highlight in the introduction. And with all sincerity, Danny replied that he would simply like to be known and remembered as the very blessed father of 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. And Danny said to me, "These precious children are what my life is all about." So with that, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Daniel Seaman.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, all of you, for your care and your interest in the state of Israel. Therefore, for me, it's to get up at 3:30 in the morning is really not that difficult and not that big a deal. The only problem I have is to try to keep quiet enough that I don't wake up the 4 children, because that will interrupt the conversation here. I have a 15-month-old baby, so I will try to talk in a way that we don't wake him, because it'll be very difficult to continue this conversation after that. I also want to wish us all a happy holiday season. In about a week, we begin the Christmas and the New Year's. Here in Israel, our holiday began this evening. In the United States already at this time, also beginning the Hanukkah, which we commemorate the victory of, we call it the forces of light over the forces of darkness. As the Maccabeans beat the Greeks tried to impose their pagan beliefs on the Jewish people at the time. And we were able, the miracle of Hanukkah is when they were able to kick the Greeks out of the temple at the time, and the menorah, where they had at that time just enough oil to light the menorah in the temple, which is supposed to be an eternal light, for one day. And they knew it would take them at least 8 days to bring in oil to continue the fire, and that little amount of oil lasted, the miracle that it lasted for the 8 days until the oil was brought in. I think more than anything signifies God's will, that if we are to take the responsibility, if we take the initiative, if we start that little light, God will be there to back us up and make sure that light lasts. And I think it's very symbolic now that in this period of time, we are, once again, the forces of light have to face the forces of evil and the forces of darkness. And we see that force throughout the world. Not much has been said in the media. International terrorism, we're all familiar, I assume, with the terror attack in Australia, where those bearing the flag of the black flag of the jihad, of the darkness, we're all familiar with that. But that same flag of darkness murdered over 300 Muslims yesterday in Pakistan, including over 150 children. And when their target were children themselves, and they pride themselves that they didn't kill the little children, they only killed the 14 to 16-year-olds. And this is the kind of evil that we're facing, and that doesn't reach enough the news, and it's not exposed enough to understand that there are people throughout the world facing the dark jihadists who have murdered and enslaving Yazidi people in Syria and in Iraq, and they're spreading throughout the Islamic world. They're murdering Christians, enslaving them, beheading them, crucifying them. It seems like we're going back to not only the periods of the Middle Ages, but even before, to the periods of the Romans. And that flag is gaining momentum and encouraging young Muslims around the world to join them. And this is a battle that all decent human beings, regardless of their religious affiliation, have to speak out against and speak up against. And this is a battle that Israel, once again, is a light in. That we are that light in fighting extremism, and we've been doing it for many years. But this battle is being conducted along our borders. And we here in Israel say very, very simply that the only difference between us right now and Christians in the Middle East and the Yazidi people in Syria and Iraq is the fact that we're capable of defending ourselves. And that we here in the state of Israel, we can fight, and and we're not, at this point, not at the mercy and the goodwill of others, but they were quite capable of defending ourselves. Otherwise, we would have been in that situation. And it's a situation we've been in for many years. We've been in for 2,000 years of exile, which culminated in the Holocaust, when the Jewish people could not defend themselves. And I mention that right now is not to put any guilt on Christians, but just to mention the simple fact that as Israel defends itself and has defended itself over the past 67 years, we were put in situations, and we came under assault because we accepted the UN resolution 67 years ago, which partitioned the land of Israel and recognized the Jewish state in Palestine and an Arab state. And had the Arabs accepted that at the time, there would have been a Palestinian state. It's their right not to accept the partition and the international decision at the time. What wasn't in their right was to face this and to try to destroy the state of Israel at the time and use violence to express their opposition to the international decision at the time and try to destroy the small state of Israel at the time. And they lost that battle, and the state of Israel was created. And they did not accept it, and 20 years later, in 1967, they once again stood up against the state of Israel. And at that time, I was a little boy, but our foreign minister, Abba Eban, went around the world begging the world, literally begging the world to prevent this, because the Arabs were very vocal and very open about their intent, and the international community gave us a lot of sympathy, but did not move a finger to try to help the state of Israel. And when 6 Arab armies attacked Israel, Israel was successful in defending itself, and from that war, we were able to restore our control over the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, Judea and Samaria, which is the cradle of our religion, the cradle of Christianity, the cradle of civilization. The land of Israel that was given to the people of Israel, we were able to go back there in a war of defense, and we have been in those territories since. It has been called an illegal occupation, although by international law it's by no means illegal. At the most, it's disputed. And we have expressed our interest and our willingness in order to find peace with our neighbors, to relinquish territory, to recognize the Palestinian right to self-determination. And I'm saying this because, as Kathleen mentioned, I've been working on behalf of the State of Israel for 31 years. And in these 31 years, there were certain truths that we were told, that if Israel recognizes the Palestinians, if it cedes territory, if it dismantles settlements, if it fulfills international law, according to these supposed truths, we would be closer to peace. And in the 31 years that I've been working on behalf of the State of Israel, we have done all of these things. We have relinquished territory, we have dismantled settlements, we have recognized the Palestinian right to self-determination, recognized the legitimate representative of the Palestinians, as we were told, the PLO, and fulfilled international law. And if just simply to say, in the Gaza Strip, there is not a single living or even dead Jew in the Gaza Strip, because when we left the Gaza Strip, we also took away all the Jewish graves. And none of this has brought us closer to peace. It has only encouraged the enemies of the State of Israel to try to destroy it. And the same places that we left and dismantled the lives of 10,000 Jews are used as launching pads against the rest of the State of Israel. And just this summer, just 4 months ago, we were in a battle where the entire State of Israel was under the threat of missiles, and the international community not only did it not hail Israel for making these concessions to the Palestinians, but our attempts at defending ourselves were questioned and criticized. And our battle against these forces of darkness is criticized. And right now, unfortunately, the United States faced this in 9/11. And the Australians are tasting this right now also. I don't know that the United States is occupying anything. I don't know, because the accusation against Israel is constantly the occupation. It's always waved in our faces. That's because we're occupying Palestinians. This is what's happening. I don't know Australia to be occupying anything. People can say the United States, and they do bunch us together. They call, and I'm sure you've heard it often in demonstrations around the Arab world, that the little Satan are the Jewish people, but the great Satan in their eyes is the United States. All right, so they accuse us of doing this, but Australia I don't know to be in any occupying force or any Satan, any level of Satanism as far as they're concerned. The only thing is that they are infidels. And any place which is not, as they call it, Dar al-Islam, which is the land of Islam, is Dar al-Harb. Dar al-Harb in Arabic is the land of the sword, which means that this is where they have to install fear and have to fight those infidels. And this is a battle that Israel has been facing. And I mention all of this now is not to give you an historical overview, but to mention that one of the major battles Israel is facing right now is the attempt to impose a settlement after 21 years of negotiations, of territorial concessions, of recognizing the terrorist organization, the PLO, of an intifada, as they call it, which was an attempt at terror war against the Jewish people that we went through 10 years ago here in Jerusalem and throughout Israel, and an attempt to revive that recently in violence in the streets of Jerusalem. Despite all of this, and the fact that Israel has made every possible offer to the Palestinians that has been rejected by the Palestinians themselves, to almost every territorial concession that they requested, when we had only one request. Throughout these 21 years of negotiations, there has not been a single gesture on the part of the Palestinians to show either goodwill or a single concession made on their part towards the state of Israel. And the only thing we asked them is they recognize the state of Israel as the Jewish state for a simple reason, not that we need their recognition. We are the Jewish state. But what it means from their perspective is that once we make those concessions, once we sign a piece of paper and we make tangible concessions to them, ceding territory and dismantling whatever settlements may need to be dismantled, that they will have no more requests from the state of Israel. And that they recognize that this is the Jewish state. At that point, that will be a concession on their part. And they refuse this. And just this week, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Abu Mazen, said very clearly in Arabic that he will never recognize Israel as a Jewish state. He will never recognize Israel as a Jewish state. And he says very clearly that the state of Israel should expect, and it's one of their requests, that we will absorb over 6 million Palestinian refugees who live around the Arab world into the state of Israel, not into a Palestinian state, into what is today the Jewish state of Israel. They're demanding that happen, which in effect will be the dismantling of the Jewish state. And therefore that request that we have said is very clear. That if they do not accept that means there will be the fact that we make concessions and we leave Judea and Samaria and all these areas that we took control over in a war of defense in 1967, that will not be the end of the war. And this is very clear, and the international community is ignoring that because right now there's an effort on the part of Europeans and European parliaments to symbolically recognize a Palestinian state even without a negotiation with the state of Israel. And that more than that they're saying that Israel, and this is the Palestinians, are bringing a resolution to the United Nations saying by the 25th of December, and fortunately just now as I was checking up what I hadn't seen since going to sleep this evening, I was very encouraged to see that the U.S. State Department announced that it will veto any such attempt. There was question whether or not that was going to happen, which was very unfortunate. The United States said very clearly that it will veto any such attempt of the Palestinians bringing a resolution that the negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, the goal of that negotiations is that Israel will withdraw to the 1967 borders, and that this will happen within 2 years, and if not, this settlement will be imposed upon the state of Israel. And if there are some of you sitting there, did you hear what I just said? Yes, that the negotiation process will culminate in Israel making all the territorial withdrawals within 2 years. And if not, within 2 years, the Palestinian state will be declared. And what is the purpose of negotiations if that is the point? And this nullifies previous UN decisions of 1967 UN resolution. You've all heard this, I'm sure, this number, UN resolution 242, which said that Israel would cede territories, not all the territories, but the basic element was that this would be done in negotiations. And this recognized the Jewish state, and that in the future there would be, at that time nobody spoke about a Palestinian state, but very clearly spoke about Israel making these concessions to the Arab world and would resolve the situation. So we very much would like that to happen, but now they're trying to nullify this, and for the first time in history, a country that in a war of self-defense obtained territories would be forced to cede those territories under international decision without there being any change on the part of the enemy that assaulted us in the first place. And so this is the major battle right now that is going on for the state of Israel, is this effort being done by the Palestinians, but with the support of the Europeans. And I will admit that we had been very concerned that this was an effort on the part of the American administration to bypass the Congress and the Senate, was very strongly represent the will of the people of the United States, who are very strongly supportive of the state of Israel. And we were concerned that this was an effort on the part of the American administration to bypass that by encouraging the Europeans. So I'm very pleased to see this evening that the American State Department and the Secretary of State announced that the United States would veto such an attempt. Because what this does is predispose and predetermine the outcome of such negotiations. And if you're a Palestinian, I said, just put yourself in the shoes of the Palestinians. If you know that the end result, according to the international community, is that they're going to get everything they want and they don't have to do anything, why should they negotiate in good faith? All they have to do is wait out the 2 years, and then the international community will impose. Now I'm making a side comment outside of my official, well, no longer official, but my history as being an official representative of Israel. Now I'm a civilian, so I can put in my own personal feelings here. My point on this is, yes, okay, the international community and what army exactly is going to impose that upon us, but still the fact that this would happen is a travesty. So this is the main concern of Israel at this time. Besides the war against terrorism and the war against darkness, we're in Israel engaged right now, unfortunately I say, because this is not the right time for that to be involved in internal bickering. There's a political process going on. When our government was dissolved, unlike the American system, we're more similar to the European parliamentary system, where our governments, if they do not have a majority and cannot function, they can dissolve itself. And 2 years after the previous elections, we're going to early elections now. And in March, our country will go, the people of Israel will go to elections. And that's very unfortunate right now, because we all know how politicians have the tendency of delving into the politics and forgetting the broader picture of things. And the mudslinging right now is the worst that I've seen it since in my adult life, when there seems to be a very clear vote and a clear distinction right now between those parties that believe that we should continue making concessions and continue with the process. And I think I'm sort of exposing my hand and where I stand at the moment. Those parties that want to continue with the useless attempt at making concessions to the Arabs, as we've done for 21 years. And I think this war that I mentioned before, or this operation that we had this summer in Gaza, sort of exposed to the Israeli people more than anything else the futility of the not the peace effort, but the way the peace process was conducted in the past 20 years. That the concessions made by Israel, as I said previously, did not advance peace in any way, only encouraged the extreme elements among the Palestinians that they can defeat us, and the Gaza was used as a launching pad against the state of Israel. And as a journalist that I'd spoken to a few months ago said, an Italian journalist, that she was in Gaza, that when it was just seemed absurd that the Hamas, which in no means compares to the might of the state of Israel, they have no aircraft and no tanks and no military ability whatsoever. And when strategists look at they compare if it's the Russia compared to the United States, what are the abilities and what are the technologies that each country has, and they evaluate the possibilities and the prospects of war. And when you compare Israel to the Hamas, they shouldn't even be in the same battlefield, yet they found it necessary to initiate and launch an assault against Israel. And when she asked them that question, they say, oh, they don't care about that. They don't care about losing. They don't care about the casualties on their side. They embrace that and encourage it because their goal is to undermine the legitimacy of the State of Israel. And by Israel taking defensive measures, and when they place themselves deliberately among civilians, when they sacrifice their own civilians, they know that what is happening is that Israel will be perceived as evil, and Israel will be, it will be necessary for Israel, or the international community will see Israel as creating war crimes. They're more interested in the propaganda aspect, which will delegitimize the State of Israel in the eyes of the international community and weaken us, because their end goal is the destruction and dismantling of the Jewish state of Israel. And that's their single purpose. And they're willing to sacrifice their population for it. There are 2,000 Palestinians, and many of them civilians, were killed during this summer. And the fact, and the most ridiculous thing is the fact that Israel was able to defend itself, and we had very few casualties in addition to our armed forces, the civilian on Israel's side. Though our civilians were the targets of the Palestinians, we were able to defend ourselves, by the way, with the assistance of the United States and the investment in the Iron Dome system, which is very much goes back to, it was an element in the, those of you who are old enough to remember, the American Star Wars program by the great President Reagan, who invested in Israel, was able to, the only country in the world able to develop that aspect of missiles taking out other missiles, and that served as an Iron Dome, a protection over the civilian population. We were condemned for that also, as, you only had a few casualties. We had 1 or 2 people killed from these missiles, whereas there were so many casualties on the other side. So Israel defending itself successfully was also criticized. That's how ironic and ridiculous the situation has become. So in the midst of all of this, and when it's clear to the Israeli public now that these concessions that we made for peace are actually endangering us, and we're no longer willing to do that, and when the American President Clinton 21 years ago told us to take risks for peace, these risks are no longer hypothetical or theoretical. We know exactly what those risks are, and we are not willing to take them anymore. And that's what's the issue with the elections at the moment here in Israel. And I personally hope that the Israeli public will vote smartly and not allow these people who want to and continue to endanger our society here. So those are the issues right now. That's where Israel stands. I just want to end on a positive note, that as this year comes to an end, and I look at the birth rate, as I mentioned, to me, the greatest thing for me as my family and my children, the state of Israel, the secular part of Israel, we have the highest birth rate in the Western world. And I say that represents more than anything else the optimism of the people of Israel. Speaking to you all who are Christians, I can tell you that the only community in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing and thriving, again, is in the state of Israel. Our Christian population is growing, and they're very much part and parcel of the society here in the state of Israel, and we're very proud of that they are part of our society, and the only place in the Middle East where Christians are safe is in the state of Israel, and we're very proud of that. And this fact that our population is growing and we have more children than any place else in the Western world is a sign of our optimism and our belief in the justice of our cause, and that after 2,000 years, the Jewish people are here to stay. We are the modern miracle, and we're very proud to be part of that. And the state of Israel will continue to thrive despite all the obstacles that are placed in our way. We have overcome them all. We are a thriving economy, a very optimistic society, and a proud society, and we will continue to be so. And we will continue to do so with the support of people and the American people who have been a staunch ally of the State of Israel, and we know that, and we are very, very grateful for that. And I am also grateful for Earl and Cox and Kathleen and providing me this opportunity to express that gratitude to all of you. So for me to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not a big deal, and I'm grateful for all of you for caring enough for Israel to listen to me, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny. And we'll take some questions now from the adults or the young men.
Hello, I'm from the Mobile, Alabama chapter, Aiden Anderson. And my question
How old are you, Aiden?
I am 12.
12 years old. And we're not going to, we'll ask all the young men's age, all the adults, we won't ask the age. All right, go ahead, Aiden.
This question is for Daniel Seaman. Do you believe that the war between the two countries will ever end?
Well, my oldest is 12 years old, and that is a very smart question, and a question my son asked me also, and a question that I wish I could say to you that, of course, it will end and we'll all live together, because smart people understand that war is only causes pain, and but sometimes you will find out in your life that sometimes it's necessary, although we do, and you should, thrive for peace and try to, as the Christians say, turn the other cheek. But there are people who do not see that as a sign of strength and do not see your willingness to compromise as a goodwill gesture. They see it as a sign of weakness. And that's exactly, if you want to describe those forces of evil and darkness, that's exactly it. Those forces of darkness take any of the gestures and any of the things that we as decent people would see as a way of releasing tension and trying to resolve things peacefully. They see that as weakness, and they try to thrive on that weakness. And that's the point where you have to make a decision. Are you willing to be subjugated and live under the control of people who will not see your willingness to compromise as something good, and as a reason to continue and not only subjugate, but to enslave? And there are far worse things. Unfortunately, there are some, as you grow older, you understand that there are some things that are worse than death. And those are the times when you have to stand up, and decent people are called at times, and the United States has been, in the last century, before you were born, the United States was the bearer of that flag to stand up against evil forces. And good people sometimes have to stand up and fight for what they believe in and what they cherish. And when you grow older, you'll understand that this is very much important, that you stand to defend your children. And when the battle here, and we've made concessions, especially after you made those concessions, when you've made those efforts, and the past 20 years, Israel has made that effort, understanding what the risks are. And we've reached that point that these concessions that we made were used to undermine our society. And I know that 20 years ago, I didn't have to run with my kids to a shelter, or I didn't have kids at that time, but people did not have to run. And when we made those concessions, I was hoping that when I had children, they would live in a peaceful society here and in peace with our neighbors. And though Arabs walk in our streets freely, and they go to our shops and our theaters and our restaurants and are part of our society here, unfortunately, we cannot do that in their areas. And they use their areas to launch assaults against us. And I think until they understand that they will not be able to defeat us, and until they understand that, and that understanding comes from standing strong and in defiance against them. That means that sometimes you have to pick up the sword, if you say it literally and figuratively. You have to raise that sword for them to understand. And I can base on the past. Israel does have peace treaties with two of its neighbors, with Egypt and with Jordan. And when I was a young boy, we had, for us, it was like aliens landed in Israel. We had the president of Egypt. Until that point, this was in 1977, until that point, Egypt was our greatest enemy. And overnight, literally overnight, and this was done with the assistance of the United States, the president of Egypt landed in the state of Israel. And there was a peace process. It took 3 years, but Israel signed a peace treaty with Egypt that has lasted until today. And a few years later, 20 years ago, we signed a peace treaty with Jordan, and that peace treaty lasted until now. So, yes, peace is a possibility. It's not something, and sometimes in the midst of darkness, we have to look at this. Again, this little candle of light to encourage ourselves to know that, that's what we're fighting for, to reach that. And it is possible. So I do believe that will happen. But our history as the Jewish people has taught us that we have to stand up and understand that there will those who will never accept us. We should always strive for peace, but be ready to fight if we need to. So I look at the past and I look at the fact that we have peace with Egypt and with Jordan and say, yes, eventually we will be able to. And I look in the city of Jerusalem where Jews and Arabs live together, and Jews, Christians, and Muslims live here and can follow their beliefs freely. And I say that if we can do it here in Jerusalem, we can affect, and good people will stand up and demand that this happens other places. So to answer your question very simply, even though it doesn't look like that at the moment and it looks very bleak, the prospects look bleak, based on the past, we can look at that with encouragement and believe that the small candle can illuminate the darkness, and there will be a possibility for peace in the future. And we have to hope for that. We have to maintain that hope, be willing to stand up strong for what you believe in, but that is all done for the belief that eventually there will be peace. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Second question. Next question. Anybody?
This is Terrell Price from the Mobile chapter.
Go ahead.
This is Terrell Price from the Mobile chapter, and I'm 15 years old. My question is for Mr. Daniel. If you had the power to change one major crisis in Israel, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. You guys may be very young, but you're not going to make my life any easier, are you? If there was one thing I could change. Well, if it's on my personal things, I would change the ownership of the New York Mets, that they would build a better team so that the New York Mets would be a better baseball team. I know, Mike, that you were with ESPN and you like football, but I'm a baseball fan, so that's my personal desire. But if you ask me for the state of Israel, if I could just change the way the leaders of our enemies see things, if their desire would be, if I could change their desire to want, if they would care more for their people than they care about trying to destroy us, if I could change their hearts, that they would care for their people as much as we do, because as I said earlier, when you compare the military abilities of Israel compared to that of the Arab people, or the Palestinians in this case, we have one of the strongest armies in the world, and this was necessary because we in the state of Israel, we're a very small country. We're about the size of the state of New Jersey. Although you hear about us a lot in the news and you have this visions of it being, we're no bigger than the state of New Jersey, which is one of the smaller states in the United States. And we're surrounded by countries that are in territory larger than the United States. And although people concentrate on the Israeli-Palestinian issue, it is basically an Israeli-Arab issue, when the Arab world is in territory larger than the territory of the United States, including Alaska. And numerically, in the state of Israel, we have 7 million people, which is smaller than the population of Manhattan, which 1 million of these are non-Jews. There are 6 million Jews in the state of Israel and 1 million Muslims and a smaller Christian minority in Israel. And we're facing over 1 billion Arabs. And so it's been necessary for us to have a military that compares to that of NATO. And so we have a military that's quite able to defend ourselves, and we do not use that capability when we face the Palestinians. And we're trying, but we do have to protect ourselves. So, and unfortunately, our enemy place their weapons of assault against Israel, the missiles that they're firing against, they place them among the civilians. And when Israel retaliates or defends itself, unfortunately, there are many civilian casualties on their side. And we're not happy about that. We're not pleased about that. And we do everything to try to prevent or limit the number of their casualties. So we say very simply, and this is where you say, if there's one thing I could change here, if I could change the heart of their leaders to care more of their people and therefore want to advance peace, that's the one thing I would do. I think that's the most necessary thing. If we could do that, then we would have real peace here. And Israel has shown itself to be willing to make whatever concessions are necessary to advance peace. We would do that, and there would be a Palestinian state if it was just up to us.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. Next question. Another
Hello.
chapter adult.
My name's Zach Webb. I'm from Georgetown, and my question is for Danny. In Israel, is there talk of Christ's second coming to do the events in the world?
Well, that's the Christian theology that we're in the State of Israel. We're Jewish, and we have other beliefs. There is a belief of a Messiah. People have often asked me, why am I so close to Christians? Earl Cox and I, Earl and Kathleen. Earl is a staunch supporter of Israel, and we fight together for the State of Israel. And I've been asked about that, and I said to myself, look, I'm not observant. I'm a Jew, but I'm secular. So when I may be wrong, and there may be a Messiah someday. And when the Messiah comes, we're going to ask him, "Are you Jesus, or are you the son of David?" And I may be wrong, and there may be a Messiah. And I just know one thing. Jesus was Jewish, so from our perspective, we can't lose. So whether or not Messiah comes or not, I don't know that. I'm not going to in any way belittle the beliefs of other people, because when you live in the State of Israel, you witness miracles every day. And the survival and the existence of the Jewish people in the State of Israel defies any logic. We were a small people, immigrants from Arab countries and survivors of the Holocaust. In 1948, we did not have the support of the United States, and we did not have the support of the United States in 1967 when the 6 Arab nations tried to attack and destroy us. Yet we survived, and despite generations of war and terrorism, we're a thriving country here. We've absorbed in the State of Israel a population that was 10 times that of what we originally were, when this was only 66 years ago. We are located in the third world. We have no natural resources, except for recently we've discovered vast reservoirs of natural gas here off the shores of the State of Israel. And so we're developing that natural resource right now. But our natural resource has been the people of Israel, and our ability to thrive despite all obstacles. And so when you see that, and I worked in government for 30 years, and I know how dysfunctional governments are, and especially the Israeli government is very dysfunctional, yet despite that, that's what makes me believe that there is something way above us, somebody guiding us and giving us his grace. And so I have to look at this and say there's something out there that I cannot describe, and I don't have the tools to be able to understand that. I can just trust in that. So I come from a family, my father converted to Judaism, so half my family are Christians. So to me, Jews and Christians, it's not a matter of religion, it's a matter of family. And I say this sincerely. I grew up celebrating Christmas as my grandparents' holiday. I did not feel threatened by that in any way. I didn't feel that they insisted that I convert in any way. To me, celebrating Christmas was a family issue, though religiously I didn't. My beliefs were different. But I grew up with a belief of respect for other people's beliefs, and the fact that people with different beliefs can live together and be family. And I use that throughout my life, and that's why I feel comfortable in Christian surroundings, because to me I do feel among family. So here in Israel, I can't say that we believe the things that you believe in, but I think that we all, when it comes down to it, believe in the same God. And we trust in that God and in His plan, and whatever His plan is for us, I believe that we are too small to understand what that plan is. We can just take it, and that's what the essence of faith is. And that's what the essence of believing when the Jewish people accepted God's law, or the existence of a God at the time when people had to believe in idols. We took it based on a concept of faith. And this faith continues until this day, something that is not tangible, something that you cannot see, but you have to, and you carry that belief in your heart. And I think that's the essence of both Christianity and Judaism, is that you have that faith and you believe in that plan, whatever it may be, and you understand and you believe it is for the good. And you try to do good, and you try to do as the best that you can in your upbringing. And that's all I can say, is that we may not share in that, but we respect you and that you believe in that, and we have to put our trust in God, and whatever that plan may be, that it will be for the best of humanity. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Danny, next question, anybody for Danny?
I had a question, Mike. This is Carol Leffler. Danny, I believe that the war against Islam is a more covert war. It's more underground than it's ever been before. The propaganda that's given to the tourists when they get over there by the taxi drivers and all the other individuals over there, it's so covert because they pretend to be loving brothers, but if you are with them for a certain amount of time, you find out it's the exact opposite. And now that you mention about them wanting to bring in these millions of people into the country, obviously they want to get the voting power. Does Israel have a plan against all of this new type of warfare? Is there like a master plan to get more information out about the truth, perhaps to the Christian community in the United States? Or is there any way that you can come against this? A personal friend of ours actually has a church in Bethlehem, and it's a school. I just found this out. We just met them a few months ago. But they actually have sympathy for the Palestinians that have rockets fired into their community in retaliation for what they've already done. Is there material someplace that's been prepared for us to hand out to individuals like this so that they get both sides of the story?
Well, thank you for that question. It's actually the essence of what is going on. What you're talking about is the new warfare, which we call cognitive warfare, or the advocacy warfare. And the cognitive warfare is exactly that. The fact that they are fighting us, it's not only propaganda, it's the war of images, and that's when the Hamas said that they want to weaken Israel. When they said that to this journalist, the images coming out of Gaza, although they initiated the war against Israel, they fired against our civilians, and international law allows us the ability to defend ourselves. They fired missiles from hospitals and from schools, and they used the United Nations facilities to fire against Israel. All these things, by the way, when it comes to international law, and people keep waving this against the state of Israel, international law, that any place used in an assault becomes a legitimate target, because this has been going on for several years now, and previously in the war in Lebanon, people were asking me about Israel firing at the civilian locations. I say to them, look, we cannot be more responsible for the lives of our enemies than their own leaders. We don't know where they're firing from. Our first responsibility is for our own civilians. And when we fire to take out that source of fire against Israel, we don't know that there's civilians there. They know it, and they're doing it deliberately because they want those images of destruction, and they want those images of civilian casualties to be used against the state of Israel to influence international public opinion. And that friend of yours with the church in Bethlehem, I'm sure is a very decent human being. And when you see these pictures of destruction and the death of civilians, any decent person will be moved. So the sympathy for the Palestinians is understandable, because a decent person will feel that. But the question is, what is behind that image? And when these things are done deliberately, when they're causing casualties on their own side in order to elicit a sentimental effect, they are actually sacrificing their own people. This is Molech. This is the pagans of the past, which would sacrifice their people to some belief. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're not only are they killing Christians, and they're killing Yazidis and trying to kill Jews. Yesterday, the attack in Pakistan was against Muslims. They murdered over 150 children, school kids. They attacked a school because their belief in Islam was not as devout as these animals who, in the name of Islam, are murdering their own people. And the images that they're eliciting there, these images that they're using against Israel, is to create that impression. So you asked me, is there a plan for Israel? Well, I worked for the State of Israel for 30 years in the what we call public relations, public diplomacy, trying to get out Israel's message. It is very difficult because on the one hand you have their side, which is lying and using deception, and they do not hold to the truth. In recent weeks, we had 3 cases in which the Palestinians made up. You had a Palestinian who committed suicide, and we were accused of murdering him. You had a Palestinian minister who was engaged in an argument with police here, and he died of a heart attack, and they accused Israel of murdering him. This goes back to the blood libel of ancient times, where Jews were accused of murdering children in order to make matzah out of their blood. And this thing, the Palestinians have revived the blood libel of ancient times against the State of Israel. So yes, the government tried to do it, but I admit to myself that I left government after 30 years being frustrated that not enough is done, and they're not putting enough effort into that to give, like you said, and you, from your description, I know that you've physically been here because that's exactly what we're facing, is this kind of effort on their part to defame the Jewish people and the State of Israel through words and through images. So I today work for a radio station called Voice of Israel. It's a new station that I encourage you all. It's on the internet. It's on voiceofisrael.com, www.voiceofisrael.com. It's a radio station, talk radio in English. You can get your news about Israel. If you're interested in Israel, it's talk and news radio. There's 8 hours of news there live, which you can listen to. It's directed towards the time zone in the United States. But you can listen to many of the shows there. We talk about events here. We talk about aspects of Israel, not only the politics. There's a lot of religious conversations that we have there. There are Jews and Christians on the station. There's talk about different aspects of the culture of the State of Israel, science, anything. If you're interested in Israel, if you're interested in getting the information and the knowledge, you're welcome to visit our website. You can see if you're not looking for materials, you can be well informed by Israelis. We are Israelis who are talking about life here, talking about the issues, and sharing our impressions and our knowledge and the knowledge of many Israelis, giving them a voice, and that's why we are the Voice of Israel. So you're welcome to join us there, and hopefully we'll be able to give you insights and expand your knowledge and understanding of what is actually happening here. So that's the answer I can give you about that, and the government is doing its part, but it's up to us, the public, and the individuals. And today, through the advent of social media, the people have a greater voice. And we are using, at the Voice of Israel, we're using the social media to advance and provide information and be a candle in the darkness of what is going on here.
Thanks, Danny. And I want to thank you for taking time tonight, Danny. And for all our young men and everybody listening, he's in Israel right now. And so I know he's a Mets fan. We're not going to hold that against him, but I'm going to send him something for us, the appreciation we have for you, Danny. We're going to send some to you. I thank Earl and Kathleen Cox for arranging this, because it's been very good for our young men, and I know they've learned. And I want to close this. Aiden Anderson's going to pray, and then Mickey My wife will pray, and then we'll close this call. Eden?
Let's bow our heads and pray. Lord, thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for my family, my friends, for team focus to everyone. Thank you for Mr. Danny and him being able to wake up and talk to us young men and being able to tell us about Israel. I pray for his kids and his wife and his family. I pray that he'll be safe in Israel, that God will have his hand over him. I pray for Israel and that it will stay prosperous, and thank God for protecting Israel through everything it has done. And Lord, just thank you for being such a great God and a mighty God. Amen.
Mickey? Mickey?
Yes, and I also would like to say to Daniel, thank you so much for what you shared with us on this call. And Lord, we just pray blessings of your favor and protection over Israel. Declare our friendship and our dedication to Israel. We thank you for our friends Earl and Kathleen, and we pray blessings of favor over them and over our new friend Daniel. And we thank you for this time that we've been able to have together, and we just pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Amen.
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 Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Amen.
Thank you, Daniel, for being on.
It's my
Thank
pleasure
you.
and my honor. I thank all of you.
God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.